I think the only bosses you fight with Torrent are like, field bosses, right? There's no other story boss that you fight Torrent with.
Radahn. Star Scourge Radahn.
Thank you. Yeah, Radahn, you don't have. I thought Rykard for a second, but no, Rykard, you don't either. No, it's just Radahn.
Rykard from Star Trek?
That's Riker.
Oh, that's Rykard.
It's Rukud.
No, it's Riker.
What was the show that he was in? True Mysteries or something or another? The guy who played Riker.
Oh, that was dope.
He'd have those like possibly true, possibly not. He's like,
yeah.
And somebody did a compilation of that.
A compilation of the weirdest introductions, because he asks the weirdest questions at the beginning of that show, like the kind of questions you would never consider. And he's like, how would you feel if this happened to you? And you're like, I've never thought that was even possible, so I don't have an answer prepared.
I remember one question, which is just him sauntering like into the darkened room. Do you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?
Can you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?
Yeah, I do actually. But no one's ever asked before.
Just imagine a compilation of those weird ass questions and him like riding a bike while he asks you one.
Ever gone mountain biking? Have you called a plumber to your home lately? Have you noticed how many successful restaurants are theme-based these days?
I think that was one of the, there's a bunch of really weird context.
Making conversation on a first date.
Have you had your hearing tested lately? We make our own luck. Can a home ever be truly safe?
Global warming's a myth.
Before we begin, the Gamer's Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AM Komnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
A joke is like a frog. You can open it up and figure out how it works, but it usually kills it in the process. I think that's kind of the same idea, is like when you go back and re-experience those things that have been modified with tweaks and changes and patches here and there, you're digging almost too much into the background, the functionality of the code more than the game experience, and it ruins the game, the kind of immersion that you would have, because now you're thinking about like, well, how did they implement this? How does it work behind the scenes?
Have learned that I can relax better when I'm looking at, say, like a tropical fish aquarium. Yeah. I found out it's probably the endorphins.
I was totally on board when I thought you were just going to tie this into Dave the Diver. now I'm not on board.
Dave's one of those, it's like, oh, such a big game. It really is. And it's funny because like Com is on the side of like, it should be a 20, 30 hour game, but it's like 50 or 60. And I'm like, but it's not the same 50, 60 the whole time.
Yeah, no, I feel like you and I are on the same page on that one. Like I don't think it's a 30-hour game, because every 5 or 10 hours in that game something new is added and it changes the game. So like it doesn't grow old, it doesn't get tedious. It is a different game as you progress through it.
Yeah, just when you get used to like, okay, I gotta get some more fish for the restaurant, I finally started figuring out the menu, I can do this. Suddenly there's a dolphin that shows up. What? Mm-hmm. Now you gotta go help this dolphin.
Yeah, and it definitely, it's presented in a way that like catches you off guard, because you think you have a handle on what this game is going to be, and then suddenly it's not that at all.
Yeah. No, it just kind of presents it as a very low-key pixel type game, and you're just doing this almost like Stardew underwater, but it's not that at all.
It definitely, I think that the big thing is that it has this overarching story, and when you look at it, you don't think it's going to be a story focused game. You think it's going to be that kind of cozy, just grind away kind of thing, and it's not that. It turns into a lot more.
It does feel cozy, because there's a lot of people with the like Subnautica stuff that's like, oh, this is actually a little scary, this is a little spooky, look at that big old shark. It's like, 5 times the size of Dave, but they present it in a way that's not extremely scary. Like, it's approachable.
Yeah. I think even in those moments where you're up against, you know, a shark that feels overwhelming and you're like, yeah, I just don't have the resources available to take this out, you feel like you can still get away from it fairly easily, and you can, you know, go explore a different part of the ocean. It feels very gentle. It doesn't feel like oh, now you're screwed. Now you're definitely gonna die. So yeah, I agree. It has more of a cozy feel, certainly, than Subnautica, but like, it might not be what people are expecting when they, you know, look at the art style and think of it as a cozy game, because there's a lot more there. There's
a lot of humor just in almost every scene if you're looking for it. It's like if Dave gets caught by the shark and you basically lose your oxygen. You don't die necessarily, you just lose your oxygen, and you get saved somehow. So it goes to a cutscene, and then Dave is up there like panting, like and then the guy who's on the boat, he's just like, oh man. To me, that's hilarious. It's like, Dave died.
Yeah.
And you're just like disappointed in his.
And this guy's disappointed. Yeah. How dare you die?
We had to save
Dave, you selfish bastard.
Lost all those fish. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say before, because I know we got way off topic here, and this is always potential raw footage for us, but I was shocked to see a Githyanki in Baldur's Gate 3. Because as much issues as we had with the Githyanki in Baldur's Gate 2, and the lore of Githyanki is they are just hostile to everybody. I mean, that's just who they are. They want to, they think everybody's beneath them. They'll enslave you if they need to. They do not care about you. So for us to even have one in the party was just wild to me.
Yeah, I feel like the lore surrounding the Githyanki, it gives them a very good reason to be removed from most of, you know, the races we're already familiar with. Like, they overwhelmingly want nothing to do with us unless we can be useful to them. And even then, they're not invading the Sword Coast to take slaves. They're just not above taking slaves from people who kind of stumble into interactions with the Gith. But yeah, I think they got kind of a much needed investment in Baldur's Gate 3, where, you know, they were able to explore the lore surrounding the Gith and give kind of personality to this race that played a small role up until this point. Because
in Baldur's Gate 2, if you do take the path where you go underwater and you have all that, you do run across at times mind flayers and Githyanki are there, and there's this whole fight and stuff. So that's the crossover too. They're known.
I think Jaheira even mentions interacting with mind flayers in the Underdark, and she might even have comments about the Gith.
Yeah,
because they were involved in that.
Yeah. It's there's definitely some ties there. There are very similarities, but I was so shocked that we would even consider having a Gith in our party. Now, that being said, if you know the story of Baldur's Gate 3, you kind of almost had to have that companion. It really forced the issue on you to really see their side of things.
Yeah. And I will say Lae'zel probably doesn't get enough credit as a character. They're never, you know, really warm to you, and I think that probably didn't sit well with the entirety of the audience. But like, there's a lot going on with Lae'zel that warrants some investigation, and it's directly tied in with, you know, the culture of the Gith, and the main story of Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot to do with the culture of the Gith and kind of their future, trying to move forward. So I think, Baldur's Gate 3 did a really good job of taking what was essentially kind of a non-featured race of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and giving them a lot to work with and really digging into it and making them interesting in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. Plus it's Devor Wild and
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wow.
Devor, if you're watching, you're outstanding. Let me just say that.
Please don't make this creepy.
you are
Devor, if you're watching,
man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I thought you were an amazing voice actress.
Yeah, I so that was something I noticed on recent playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. I believe Neil Newbon was the only one who received like an award for his performance, and he deserved that award, no question. I think there's so many incredible voice performances in Baldur's Gate 3. And personally for me, I think Karlach and the number of times where Karlach has a brief 1 or 2 word line that is just overflowing with emotion and not shouting, not screaming, not incredibly intense. It's very subtle. But it's delivered in this way that really, really drives home the message of what's going on with Karlach. I think there's so many examples of that in her voice acting that, like, for me, that's the character I thought deserved the award.
So we don't have very many mages, sorcerers in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 that are not without their major quirks.
Mm-hmm.
But we have Gale, and Gale was the first time I really liked a mage,
Mm-hmm.
You know, outside of maybe Imoen, but you know, in Baldur's Gate 1 she's a thief. You'd have to
like Aerie.
Well, that's the thing. Aerie, to me, I liked her but I liked her more as what she could do because she was that cleric mage. Mm-hmm. Her story of the whole, they cut off my wings. I can empathize with that. And it's my fault because of the replayability of the game. I hear it over and over.
Yeah.
It becomes a drone.
Fucking who?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the fault. Like if you play it the first time, it shouldn't have that impact. And nobody's designing these games to make her sound like she's going on, right? She's droning about the issue over and over and over. But of course, if you play the game 2, 3, 4, 12, 80 times, it's going to sound like that.
I'm curious if Baldur's Gate 3 will get to that point with me where Karlach's like, they stole my heart. I'm like, big fucking deal.
You said that last time.
I don't think we'll get there anytime soon.
But see, the problem with Aerie is that a lot of times when she does come up with they're at really weird times, and it's just because it's random speech.
Oh yeah.
Like you're right in the middle of facing these giant spiders in the woods, and they just clear. Oh, I really miss the open sky.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. The fact that there were conversations, especially conversations that actually drove those side characters' storylines that were tied to just random number generators and timers. I was not on board with that. Because of that exact reason, they pick the worst possible moment to continue a conversation about something that is completely irrelevant to what's going on right then.
Right. So it's not that I didn't like Aerie. I actually do. I love Aerie, but I can't. That's it. I can't.
Yeah, I can't.
It's kind of like Nira, but Nira like is the worst. I can't do Nira. I like the wild magic. Like I know you don't like wild magic, but I like the wild magic. So yeah.
I feel like that relentless positivity is one of those things that can get grating very fast. You're just like, all right, shut up, Nira.
Yeah. I love the fact that she's, a target. I do like how she's dealing with it, but man, I think it's the voice. I think it's her voice. I just cannot stand her voice. If she was a little bit more deeper, they got somebody.
Yeah, and I think that kind of cadence she has in her delivery as well adds to that kind of like unnecessary pep in every line. That's one of those things that gets a little gets to be a little much if it's sustained over a length of time.
Someone like Jennifer Hill, who did Mazzy, clearly it's Jennifer Hill, so she's going to nail it. But she could have done it in a higher pitched voice. It is a gnome, it's a halfling, so she didn't have to do it in that manner, but I'm glad she did, because I don't hate hearing her, but someone like Nira is just like, she didn't have to be at that octave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I think for me, Ari is that she is that higher one, but she's not that annoying, like pestering type. It's just annoying from her situation. She has never, I think probably at some point, if Ari were to just self-realize, like that's her arc. But the arc for Ari is more of like, well, you have a child with her. And that's really, she never really gets over her situation.
Yeah. No, I do feel like that throughout the entirety of your interactions with Ari, it feels like she just needs the opportunity to grieve, and she's never really given that opportunity. And then the game ends and she's still never given that opportunity.
And so that's kind of what I'm saying, is that it's not that I don't like her. I don't think that she's definitely fleshed out. I think she could have been done better.
Yeah. I could see that.
But yeah, so back to Gale. I think Gale is, I love Gale. Gale's S tier for me. So.
Yeah. No, I think Gale, initially I was not particularly fond of Gale. And it's one of the like knee-jerk reactions that comes from Gale being, he's not really arrogant. He's just extremely capable, and naturally there's some confidence that follows that. But when you first meet him, he comes across as a condescending prick because he is a prodigy, essentially. And there's no way to be like, I'm better than most people at this thing I do, without sounding full of yourself.
Yeah, because there's a moment where he's teaching you magic early on in the camp. And so if you just like use your checks that you have affinity for, dexterity, or if you're a bard, whatever, you're able to kind of do those checks. At some point, you can say, "Oh, well, you're a good teacher," and he says, "Oh, I know." He knows.
I do like that there's an option in that conversation to be like, I can already cast spells, asshole. You're not teaching me anything.
Yeah. But he's basically on the path to Elminster-like qualities. Mm-hmm. He's like the Obi-Wan almost, of the growing Obi-Wan, I should say, the early on Obi-Wan. So I get it, and when I met him, I was like, he's just another mage, right? He's just going to be another mage. But the more you kind of get into it, and you realize early on, because he needs those magical items, there's got to be some reason here. He's like, otherwise everything will go boom. Well, to me, someone who knows a little bit more about the lore and the whole Mystra thing, I was like, there's something significant here. Just like there's something significant with Volo. There's something significant with Elminster. What do they all have in common? Mystra.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the timing of that, the quest with Gale, is amusing, because like in Act 1 you can rest and you can cycle through all of the those initial experiences where Gale has to consume a magical item, and then it prompts that discussion where he explains it all. But then afterwards, he never needs to consume another magical item, and you can play the game for hundreds of hours after that point. It's just like, you needed 3 items in the first 4 hours of this game, and now you don't need anything? I feel like you just wanted me to give up on the cool stuff I had.
To me, that was perfection. You talk to Elminster, whereas Elminster comes up to you in Baldur's Gate 1. He goes up to you, and it's like, sometimes for some people it's kind of a game to avoid ever talking to him.
Yeah.
But he does go up to you, and he forces that conversation. He knows what's going on. He's still kind of guiding you without guiding you. He's like reassuring you that what you think you know, go do that. But you have to go up to Elminster. You have to talk to him. And then that initiates the whole like, man, I'm hungry. What do you got to eat?
Yeah.
Of all things. And I thought that was so great. It was like the true Elminster. I really think they nailed the personality really well. But of course, he tells Gale, he's like, look, Mister needs you. And as a reward, we're going to take off this ticking time bomb for now.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense.
I think that was they do provide an explanation. So that little criticism that I gave, that goes out the window when you get the full story, because it's very clearly explained why Gale no longer has to consume those magical items. But yeah, I definitely think, like, as far as companions go, and as far as magic users in the Sword Coast and the lore around that, Gale is exceptionally interesting. He's not just another. He's not like Edwin, who is, a good mage who's questing for power that he doesn't really have, so he can find that, the safety that comes from being able to kind of cast these incredibly powerful spells. He's not Dynahair, who's, just another mage kind of doing their own thing, just, doing the best they can. He's not Nira, who is essentially a scientific experiment. He's unique. He's his own thing. And even within the world of magic users, he's exceptional, but in a way that, like, you don't feel like you're let down by his performance in the group, because you're not looking at Gale like, you're this supposed to be, the prodigy, you're casting magic missile. It's a pretty basic spell.
Yeah. He's like, do you not know what Ceramorphosis is? Well, it is to be avoided. Yeah. He's very factual. Even though he has the knowledge, he's not encumbered, because that is the fault, unfortunately, of some people that have too much, braining, is that they kind of get into their own heads. That never happens with him. He's very much in control, and even when he doesn't have control.
I think Gale is a great representation of that kind of struggle, of somebody who has all of this information at their disposal to try and always be considering the big picture in their choices. And even Gale, who is, this prodigy, this extremely bright and talented mage, does have those moments where he's ready to rush into action based on his emotion and this kind of tunnel vision he has. And you, as the player, kind of have those opportunities to kind of be like, all right, take it down a notch. You are literally a ticking time bomb. Need you to be a bit calmer about this and approach it rationally. So he's both this kind of like unrealistic character who's capable of so much, and this very realistic personality of somebody who's just trying to do their best with their exceptional gifts.
Yeah. One thing that was different, though, as far as between the original Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 3, but the Underdark. The Underdark is a major portion of Act 1. Act 1 almost has 3 acts within it. Yeah. But you don't have any of that in the original Baldur's Gate. It's non-existent. You go underground, you have some caverns, you have some temples that are, no longer in use, but you don't have the Underdark. But it's there, apparently, in that whole Sword Coast. Now, to be fair, we're supposedly, I think, northeast of Baldur's Gate in Baldur's Gate 3. And then where we are in the Sword Coast, we're south of. But still, the Underdark is just as large as the overworld. So that's the part that was different. They definitely wanted to include it. And when they included, they definitely included quite a bit. So that was good. But I think it caught a lot of people who have played the original Baldur's Gate a little off guard, because they weren't expecting it to be as large as it was. because really the underdark area that you do is more of a scene, and then you're Menzoberranzan and Menzoberranzan.
I don't think it was Menzoberranzan in Baldur's Gate 2. Ustnatha.
Wait a minute. No. Let me see.
Yeah. A drow city in the Underdark.
Because that's something that.
Would you think I just made that name up?
No. It's no. Because Viconia says Ustnatha quite a bit. Ustnatha. So that's why I was like, are we confusing that with what she said in Baldur's Gate 2? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly what she says, but I can't remember it's Elvish, so it's not like something that's going to stick with me.
It's interesting because it's under this, it says on here on the wiki that it's underneath Tether.
Yeah.
And Tether is where originally Jaheira is from.
Oh.
You'll find out in the video.
I will be watching that.
That Jaheira is from royalty, she's from nobility.
I feel like I did know that. And maybe it's just like bits and pieces are sneaking through.
Yeah.
And I haven't made the full connection, but yeah.
Jaheira is, like I said, very unique. And I'm glad they did put her in Baldur's Gate 3. I think it really helped push the story.
I found her to be so much more likable as a character after considering the entire trilogy. Because I think, in Baldur's Gate 1, she's not really a fun companion. She's very much like we have shit to do. Come on. Stop dragging your feet. And then in Baldur's Gate 2, it's a lot of like, well, my husband's dead, so that sucks. And she gets more fleshed out as a character. You get to learn a lot more about her, but it's not a positive experience. And then in Baldur's Gate 3, you get to see her 100 years later, still carrying some of those scars, but treating everything, as lessons learned and integrating that into how she approaches things now.
Well, the one connective tissue for all that is the harpers. She's a big harper. And the reason why you're found is because of the harpers in Baldur's Gate 1. Your foster father, Gorion, was a harper. She's with Khalid, who is a fellow harper, and they met each other through being harpers. Her reason for wanting to go to Nashkel is because it was a harper quest that the mayor had asked. He doesn't say it in those words. He says, I talk to people that are acquainted with Jaheira. And that's how, I came to know that you guys were on your way. And then in Baldur's Gate 2, she's poisoned because of her work as a harper. And she's in Baldur's Gate 3 because the harpers are the ones who besiege the tower.
Yep.
It's all the harpers. That's what I'm saying, is that it's not their fault or anything. Is that's the reason why the connective tissue is all here, is because of the harpers. So that's much more important at play. And it's interesting that they don't really open up that part of it. Like, I would have thought there'd be a harper base somewhere, somehow, doing some kind of harper thing. Because they are in our organization. They have their leaders and council members and this and that. But Jaheira is more of like a foot soldier for all this. It's really interesting. She's
in Baldur's Gate 3, she is the High Harper, right?
High Harper.
So like she is kind of within Baldur's Gate the authority of the Harpers.
Right. But she's not like sitting on a throne somewhere giving those orders. She's actually out there doing those things. So she's immensely interesting when it comes to that kind of stuff. She doesn't take the back seat.
And I also think this version of her that we get in Baldur's Gate 3 has a little more humor to it. It has a little more of a fun edge that didn't get to show through in Baldur's Gate 2, because I mean, Jaheira doesn't get to have fun in Baldur's Gate 2, so like I get it. It shouldn't have really been showcased in there, but yeah, she gets to have, you know, funny lines. She gets to make jokes with Minsk and kind of tease him about all of the trouble that he's getting them into. And she also has those moments where she's like, I had to leave you behind and it hurt. And now I'm going to make a joke about it because that's how I move on. I just think she got fleshed out in a way that I'm really happy with.
Yeah, because you can also say that because she was been there for so long, the last light in, that she could have internalized a lot of things too. But she kept herself busy, and as a harper, she was still doing her. She truly believes in this stuff, even though she's a true neutral. That's how she gets by. She doesn't get too low and she doesn't get too high.
I'm gonna be honest. I also teared up a little bit in kind of the closing moments of the game, where you kind of gather all of your allies. This is like after the point of no return. You're launching your attack against the Netherbrain, and you've gathered all of your allies in that kind of meeting space just before you're climbing the tower to reach the Netherbrain. Jaheira, when it cycles through all of your allies and them declaring that they're ready to go on, Jaheira says, "Nature's servant awaits," and it's this wonderful little callback to something she said hundreds of times throughout Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I really liked that. That was a nice little a little detail in that moment that felt wonderful.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to go outside of her element. Whereas somebody like Faldorn, it's probably like, this is unnatural. Yeah. We're not supposed to be in a dungeon. This shouldn't be made. This should be left to nature. And whereas Jaheira is like, it is what it is, and we just have to get this done.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot more difficult to kind of understand why Faldorn would be in the city of Baldur's Gate and not trying to basically destroy the city and return it to nature. It's a lot easier with Jaheira to say that, like, yeah, she's a druid and she wants nature to kind of be able to run its course, but she's not trying to overthrow all of society to accomplish that. She's just trying to make sure society doesn't venture too far and cross that line.
In doing my video, there's a lot of things I had forgotten that helped me remember by making the video, actually. But in the books, the Baldur's Gate books, which are loosely tied to the game, let me just put it that way, there are some things that are factually correct. She's a druidess of with the god of Mihaliki. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Mihaliki is a neutral god. I don't think he's neutral, true neutral. I think he's neutral good. But that's consistent with her alignment. She's true neutral. And the reason why she's a druid is because when her family was attacked, because the whole entire town where she was at, the nobles were all attacked. Think like the French Revolution type thing in Tether. And one of the servants saved her. The rest of her family was killed. But one of the servants snuck her out and then found a alcove of druids that were there, and they decided to take her in as an orphan child, and that's how she grew up. She grew up as a druid, and that's the reason why she's a druid. But her god is Mihaliki, but she's a harper by profession almost, but by class she's a druid. So it's like all these things are like, this is how this happened, even though it wouldn't have been normally natural for her to go down that road.
Yeah, I think it was so for those not familiar with the second edition rules that Baldur's Gate 2 used, druids were restricted exclusively to a true neutral alignment. So they couldn't be good or evil, and they couldn't be lawful or chaotic. They were exclusively true neutral. And it kind of makes sense, the idea that Jaheira is somebody who adopted this kind of the code of somebody who is true neutral, but has always kind of leaned more towards a neutral good kind of personal morality. So it makes sense that she pledged herself to this druid god who is actually neutral good, and kind of embraced that rather than really stick to this regimented, like, kind of true neutral, like, you can't go too far in either direction.
Yeah. Yeah, because she could always have said, hey, look, my lineage is actually the nobility of Tether, blah, 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 this and that. She said, that's not who I am anymore. I mean, that's what I grew up as a druid. This is what I know. Mm-hmm. So it's really neat. And of course, she's a half elf, which I didn't explore that side of it. So she's half human, which I did say, and half elf. So when you're half elf, you could be half elf and half whatever. But yeah, she's half human in this situation.
For whatever reason, in the lore of the Sword Coast, half anything means half human and that thing, because humans are just going around getting busy with every other species.
I don't know necessarily what half is what in her parents. Like, I don't know if her father was human or I have no clue. There's probably something there. I don't really know. But there's actually some original Baldur's Gate website stuff that has been lost and gone. They had posted some things, and I was able to collect some things when I was doing this lore video, and connect some of those ties, but not much. There's because it's all gone now. And I have the BioWare Bible, which is that 25th anniversary of, BioWare stuff, but it doesn't address. I looked. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things we've talked about where, like, the lore of the Sword Coast is so interesting that there's absolutely people who are investing in it and building on it and expanding from, those canon kind of data points that we get. So, like, what we know about Jaheira is a fraction of everything there is about Jaheira. And there's probably somebody who's gone and put the effort in to build up her backstory and develop lore beyond what we know. But, like, then you get into issues of intellectual property rights. So, like, what would be a really satisfying backstory for Jaheira might be locked away behind, legal restrictions, which is a shame.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Karlach fangirls over her. Yeah. But I'm like, I mean, you're the only one who's done that. So I don't know how famous she really is. Yeah. And so it was kind of like, if it's just like, wait a minute. If Karlach had done more like, wait a minute, you're the Jaheira? Because, in the Hells, we hear a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're that Jaheira? And that would have been a little bit more, but I think they intentionally tried to fangirl the whole thing. So it didn't work for me, but yeah.
I think it kind of works because you get those moments of Karlach's backstory where she talks about growing up in Baldur's Gate and being a little girl in the city that Jaheira essentially saved and still sort of lives in. Like, she's gone to Moonrise to deal with that issue, and that's where you meet her, but she has a home in Baldur's Gate. We catch her when she's abandoned that home and focused on fighting Ketheric.
Yeah, but does Karlach fangirl over Minsk? Yeah.
Not nearly to the same degree, but I definitely remember there were moments where she was like, wait, that was the Minsk who traveled with Jaheira.
There you go. That's what I'm saying, is that I think if it was more toned down, then that would, but you're right. She grew up in Baldur's Gate, so she would have known that stuff. But even the people of Baldur's Gate have a statue of Minsk that they forgot is actually Minsk. They just, they think it's like some reminisce of some fabled hero, but it's actually Minsk.
I love that touch in the story with Nine Fingers, where Nine Fingers talks about Minsk being her hero, and it has nothing to do with Minsk doing anything. It's just him literally being a statue and her using the statue as shelter. I thought that was such a cute little, like, minor detail in their discussion that, like, really gives them this connection that wouldn't You could easily just be like, yeah, you were my hero because you saved the city, and you never back down from chasing out and destroying evil. No, you're my hero because when it rained, I would cower under a statue of you. Turns out it was you the whole time.
And like I said, when there's the description of those notes that you find, it says, we need to find our duplicate of this statue because we know it's just a fiction and whatever, but it's what he represents that's important. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's actually Minsk.
Yeah.
Or it was. They lost it. They didn't lose it. He became unstatued.
Yeah. I also think in that the quest line to go and rescue Minsk and figure out what's going on with him, you get another little callback to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and you find out, I think you find essentially where Minsk has been like living in the sewer, and he has little souvenirs from companions from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I was so excited to see those. I thought that was such a cute little remembrance of some of the characters. And I think one of them is supposed to be a callback to the idea that Aerie is a winged elf, and Minsk has like little toy wings, I think, that he kind of has on a little pedestal for his replacement witch.
Yeah. Which I did say in this lore video, it's actually Wicklin. Wicklin means a wise woman. And it's the Rashomon where they're from. But she was actually sent as a missive to the Sword Coast because of a prophecy. And they thought it was a minor prophecy, but they wanted Dynaheir to check it out. The prophecy is the wise Alalondo's prophecy coming true. The original BioWare archived website said that. The Orthon sent her, and she is doing her job. But she's a lesser Wicklin, but she's just investigating because she doesn't think that anything's about it because they're sending her, who's not the greatest of Wicklins, which would make sense because you get her at level 1.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many like dots that get connected, and it's, of course, she passes away, and that's how Minsk decides to take on Aerie as his Wicklin.
That's the phrasing that most aptly describes what happens to Dynaheir.
Yeah. Well, I had to set the stage because when I started doing Jaheira for part 2, spoilers here. I mean, it's, play the game. I mean, I'm not spoiling nothing, but you start off already knowing Dynaheir and Khalid is dead, and I couldn't just like say, okay, we meet Jaheira, the game ends. There's really no more development that we know about Jaheira. And so suddenly we're supposed to feel bad about her and Khalid. So I had to set the stage so that a lot of my 45-minute video now that's out there, it would have been an hour. I just didn't want to stretch it out, but I could have. I really wanted to set the stage of how close they were and the reliance they had upon each other and how the Harpers were the connecting issue here and how they were able to resolve that. And they've done it before, they'll do it again. So now if I go into part 2 or the 2 of the 3 of the next lore, at least I can start off with that foot of saying, yeah, remember that guy I talked about a lot? Yeah, he's the one who died. Now there's the footing to contextualize why she's the way she is.
And yeah, I think they couldn't really revisit that story in too much depth in Baldur's Gate 3. I think they gave it what it was due in Baldur's Gate 2, and then it's a part of who Jaheira is, but it's not something that needs to be revisited in Baldur's Gate 3. But there is that little added benefit of if you take the Harper pin from one of the bodies in the Shadow Curse lands, you visit Jaheira's home, there's a little some kind of mechanism on the side of a desk, I think in like a study. If you insert the Harper pin, it opens a secret door and you get into Jaheira's little nature alcove underneath her house. And then within that kind of sanctuary, there's an even more secret area hidden behind like a bookshelf or something. And in there is the necklace that Khalid gave Jaheira in essentially kind of like a place of honor, where she can kind of reflect on her past life. I thought that was another wonderful little tribute to the first two games. You can find gear that you might have given Jaheira in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. There's the Belm scimitar and the Staff of the Ram, which are both weapons Jaheira might have used in your playthrough in those games, because druids in 2nd edition were proficient with scimitars and staves. So it makes sense that those might have been the equipment that Jaheira had when she was adventuring 100 years ago. And she's retained, the good stuff in this study, or this little sanctuary underneath her study. I thought it was just another like really well done Easter egg to connect it to the previous game.
Essentially the intro of Jaheira, and she's basically reciting the prophecy of the wise Orlando, another one, right? Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be about the night song coming back and blah blah blah. But I'm going to say it has a double meaning here in this situation, where it applies specifically to Jaheira. She is the one who's come back for the second death of the ball spawn. Mm-hmm. Or the ball, I should say. And so I'm going to try to make those connections, because I still see that it's not just a closed-ended issue. It could have multiple meanings behind the prophecy, that she's speaking it, but she's actually inadvertently speaking about herself. So I thought it was kind of neat. So
yeah, I think that's something you'll kind of see with prophecies in general. There's always kind of like a few ways to interpret it, and there's always kind of ways to make it about somebody else and the role that they'll play in these events that you'll never guess when you first hear the prophecy. So I think that's definitely a fun way to go about kind of revisiting a prophecy that basically lays out the entire story of 3 games and make it fresh again.
She will rise in moonlit glory and carve a path of brightness to the accursed one's second death. And at that time, when she says that, the night song's flying over to handle, Catherick. And yeah, I could say it's very literally like that, but I could say this one is unshackled from the Jaheira. I say this one is unshackled because she was stuck in that zone. She not only handles Catherick, but also the ball spawns.
The story surrounding Jaheira it gets more interesting with every game.
Yeah. So on Baldur's Gate 4, when she's still alive somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that depends on when Baldur's Gate 4 is set.
2,000 years in the
even
future.
Making it. Yeah.
I remember Jaheira.
It's Cyberpunk, the Baldur's Gate game.
Don't not read the books in Baldur's Gate 3, because they're important in Baldur's Gate 1, they're important in Baldur's Gate 2. And like I said, they're not like game ending if you don't ever read a book. I mean, obviously, but they help really flesh out why things happen the way they do. And they really kind of tell you a lot, because BioWare is really good about saying, it's there if you want to look, it's there. And Larian took the same thing, and they have, and the first book that you can run into on the beach is poems for the Bitch Queen. And I thought that was going to be important, so I kept it. And I kept thinking like, okay. And so then when I was like, and I remember the temple of Umberlee is in Baldur's Gate. I won't keep it for that, because I don't know, man. I may need it for some. I lost my book, and then it leads to some other thing. No, it was
that would have been a nice little touch. Yeah. It would have been a lot to ask players to pick up a book immediately following the tutorial and hold on to it until Act 3, though.
Yeah, but how many times do you run into the same book over and over and over? Because there's a lot of books, but you do run into the same version in several areas in Act 1.
Yeah.
And I don't have any examples in front of me, but if let's say they have like 10 books, you'll run into those same 10 books over and over and over. That's the only time you run into the poems of the Umberlee. And I thought, this has got to mean something.
Yeah.
No.
Apparently not.
Nope. I mean, that would have been kind of cool. I thought that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, I feel like any kind of actual interaction with Umberlee herself would have improved that piece of the game. You really only interact with Umberlee's followers, and the goddess stays kind of out of that whole situation. But it would have been interesting to know like what her opinion on this situation was.
You get the impression that Umberlee just handles business. Like when she was made mortal, she's like, all right.
I think you do get that impression that Umberlee is not somebody who is overly concerned with things that aren't relevant to her. So like she has this, this community worshiping her, and there's a death in the members of her worshippers. She still doesn't make an appearance. She doesn't get involved. She's like, yeah, no, that people die all the time. Deal with it.
Yeah. It's absolute, I guess. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting the actual gods who seem to get involved in this conflict, and the ones who are like, not my problem.
We started off with Umberlee, we finished with Umberlee, so.
Yep.
But anyway.
Everybody's favorite Baldur's Gate character, the bitch queen.
Yeah. I still can't believe I held on to that book. I thought for sure.
I definitely, when I saw that, I knew exactly who it was about, and I was like, oh, I wonder if we'll get more of that character, because we never really got to dig into them in BG1 or 2. No.
Yeah. I mean, we did, but we didn't. It's not any more than I would say than what we had in Baldur's Gate 1. But yeah. We will check you guys later. Like, subscribe, comment, and then there's a little alert button there. If you click that alert button, it'll notify you when either we go live or you get a new video for Banana's Let's Play with Morbo.
Morbo Beowulf.
Yeah. And are you going to be doing any more Let's Plays after this one?
Yeah, I'd be open to it. I think, if there's an audience for them, if people are curious to see other Final Fantasy games or maybe Baldur's Gate or whatever, feel free to post a comment or join the Discord and share what kind of games you'd like to see and what format. Do I want to do more live streaming or stick with a Let's Play? Yeah,
we definitely have that Discord, so definitely join Discord. You can always say anything like you'd prefer to have this topic discussed, or prefer Banana play Andromeda or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Andromeda.
I mean, I am, given how much of Andromeda I've forgotten, I am not above going back and playing that again. I'd be curious to play it again. I don't think I'll enjoy it, but I'd be curious.
That's one of those things, like, I don't think I myself could play it, but I wouldn't mind someone like Banana roughing it and playing. Is like, oh my God, I have to hold E just to pick up my helmet.
I've had my moments of that with Final Fantasy VII. Now that I'm playing the remake, there are certain doors where you have to hit Y to open them, and then there are doors where you have to hold Y to open them, and I'm just like, why? Why can't I just hit the button? Why do I need to hold it as if this is somehow a skill gate?
Why?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, anyway, like I said, we'll check you guys later. Y'all take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.